I'm Dr. Kim Duffy, the Senior Product Manager for Life Sciences here at Vicon. Welcome to the Nexus Insight webinar. In today's presentation, we'll be covering what is Nexus Insight, how our early adopters program supported the development of features and the future roadmap, what the key features are. I will then hand over to my amazing colleague Nev, who will be providing a demo of how these work within Nexus Insight. Nexus Insight is the latest reporting tool for Vicon Life Sciences. This was developed alongside the life sciences community to create a simple, efficient reporting with modern visuals for ease of use and data comparison. Vicon partnered with Moveshelf to develop this new reporting tool. Moveshelf, for those who are not familiar, is a life sciences cloud-based reporting and data manager provider. By combining the tried and tested technology that powers the Moveshelf information system, Vicon Life Sciences expertise and ecosystem, Nexus Insight brings efficient, intuitive reporting. There is also an additional integration for individuals who require cloud-based reporting, and I will be discussing this in more detail shortly. As I mentioned earlier, Nexus Insight was developed alongside the life science community. During the development of this product, we embarked on an early adopters program. This was a worldwide outreach with users ranging from gait to research and sports biomechanics, and it also encompassed individuals that capture the data, so a single user that captures data and also reports, to users that have collaboration with their team where they capture the data and then others within the team report. And they provided us with valued feedback on in-development features, allowing us to iterate our offerings before we launch the product. And it has also helped us confirm what we need moving forward and how we can help the life science community to fulfill the reporting needs. Before I hand over to Nev, I'm going to highlight some key features of Nexus Insight. Whilst we partnered with Moveshelf, who are a cloud-based reporting provider, we know for a lot of life science community, internet access is not always feasible due to IT restrictions within the institute. As such, Nexus Insight is a local application, which means it does not rely on internet access to create, view, and export reports. To help facilitate reporting generation from day one, we have created several report example templates for all key life science reporting areas. The first one is a lower limb gait analysis report template. We've also provided a functional movement, and for this particular report template example, this is side cutting. And finally, we've provided an upper limb sporting example, and this example is baseball hitting. Within all these report templates, you have the ability to also display third-party devices. So for example, moments of powers and/or EMG. In addition, we know that these report templates might not facilitate all your needs. So you do also have the ability to create your own. This means you can customize to your own needs and your own report format. You have the ability to create split views. And what split views do is they allow you to create a quick snapshot and focus data into a specific insight. From this screen, in the top left-hand corner, we've got the 3D perspective of our captured data. On the top right, we've got the video. And in the bottom two, we've got graphs of our model outputs. And what's really useful about this is you can get a great insight into your data as a quick review. This is an image from our amazing colleague, John. But you could imagine even myself, who has had many ACL injuries, when I'm reviewing my data of me doing a side cut, I could then easily compare that video to how it looks from my model outputs, in particular hip flexion, knee extension, to see how that impacts. It's also a very useful feature for teaching. Imagine you teaching biomechanical principles. It's a great way to explain the data that's being seen by aiding with visual. And the fact all this data is fully synchronized, it allows you an ease of use playback. And later on in this webinar, Nev is going to be providing a demo of how split views work. Alongside reporting model outputs, for example, your kinematics, you have the ability to add reference data. Reference data is very useful, as we know, to be able to compare your data, your participant, your patient, your athlete to a normative data set, how they compare. And a lot of normative data and collaborations with researchers is shared via CSV and Excel files. As such, we wanted a way that made it easy to import your reference data into Nexus Insight. And the way you can do this is via an Excel file. Again, this is something Nev is going to be showing shortly. And then finally, before handing over, I'm just going to talk about the report and export options. Within Nexus Insight, there is the ability to export a report. You can do this using a hard copy via exporting a Word document. And what this does is allows you to export all your reporting outputs, your spatial temporal parameters, your kinematics, your kinetics, for example, if they're in your report template. And this will be displayed in a Word document, making it very easy to share your report with your colleagues, your patient, and athlete, and review that. And as it's in a Word document, there might be some other insights that maybe your colleague wants to add in. So it allows the ability to do this. And this is within the realms within Nexus Insight. Now we do have an integration also with Moveshelf, and I'm going to give more details on this in the next slide. So in addition to exporting the report to a Word document, you do have the ability to export the report to the cloud, and this is using the Moveshelf integration. Moveshelf is a great way to be able to share your report and collaborate on the data that is being seen. Note that this is an additional price for cloud-based access, and for those that want more information on this, please contact Moveshelf at hello@moveshelf.com, and they will be able to provide more details in how the integration works between Nexus Insight and Moveshelf dashboard. In addition to the features, I do also want to showcase the integration within Nexus 2.16. So within Nexus 2.16, you do have the ability to create and load reports as seen within the Pro Clips. What this means is that you have the ability to go directly to your report from Nexus, saving you time. And you can also then review your reports by double-clicking through Nexus, and this is done within Nexus 2.16. So I'm going to now hand over to Nev, who's going to provide you a demonstration of the features I've shown and some others. Over to you, Nev.
Thank you, Kim. Before I start, there are 5 key points that I want to highlight in this demonstration. Number 1, how easy it is to select and compare data from different subjects and sessions. Number 2, your data will be presented in an easy to understand format with everything time synchronized. Number 3, how easy it is to create layouts that will allow you to select the metrics that you want to focus on. Number 4, how easy it is to load and view reference data. And finally, how easy it is to export your report to a Word document. So before I actually open Nexus Insight, I want to show you what we need to do to prepare your trials in Nexus first. In Nexus, you will need to have your model outputs generated. And over here, I am displaying the left knee angle. Number two, you will have to have time bar events correctly placed. And this is for time normalization in Nexus Insight. And number three, if you would like to present them in your Nexus Insight report, you have to have your spatiotemporal parameters generated and stored in the C3D. So I'm going to open a report in Nexus that I had already created. This report was generated using data on two of my amazing coworkers, John and Louis. This data includes spatiotemporal parameters, kinematics, moments, powers, and force data. This report was generated using the gate template that is provided by Vicon. The report itself is broadly split into two parts. In the middle of the screen, I have the headings for the data that is available to me. And on the left-hand side of the screen, I have the information that is pertinent to the report and the trials within that report. And I will be discussing this in more detail later on. When I expand any of the headings in the center of the screen, say the kinematics, I have the thumbnail view of the graphs that are available to me. I can also expand other headings at the same time, such as moments and powers, as an example. And to close these headings again, I just click on the up arrow next to the name. When I expand the spatiotemporal parameters heading, this will display those parameters in a grid format that you can see over here. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have the report name, the ability to export the report, a pre-made layout. I've only created one over here, but I could have had more. The reference data that I have already loaded from this dropdown, and the report template that I have selected, in this case, the gate template. And again, I will be discussing these in more detail later on. Further down below, we have the report time, and this is condition summary versus comparison. And to help me illustrate the differences between the two, I'm going to back to the graphs, say the kinematics, and I'm going to expand a graph, say the hip flexion. And to expand any thumbnail, not just the graphs, I hover my mouse over the panel and I can see this up arrow on the top right. So I'm going to press that to expand it. The condition summary report type shows the average and standard deviation of all gate cycles for each trial that was selected for the report. In this report, I had 2 walking trials for John and 2 walking trials for Louis. Each trial had multiple gate cycles that were averaged, and that is represented by the center thick line. And the standard deviation is the shaded area around the average. The color scheme for Nexus Insight is left is orange and right is blue. And each trial has a different line designation. For example, Walk 01 is a solid line and Walking 02 is the dots at the bottom. I can remove trials that I don't want to see in this graph by clicking on them. And over here, we can see this gray solid line and the gray shaded area. And that is my reference data that I had shown you how I loaded previously. Now, to add the trials again, I will simply click on the names. I can scale the graph to fit the y-axis by clicking on this up arrow on the top left corner of the screen. And we can see that this has now expanded the graph to fit the y-axis. To go back to the limits that I had set in the template, I simply click the button again. Now, I can also see any metrics of any data point by clicking on a point on the graph. To return to the thumbnail view, I'm going to press this down arrow on the top right screen. And now back in the thumbnail view, I can still scale the graph. And I can also see that the legend is on the bottom of the screen over here where I've got my trials. And just like the maximized view, I can add or remove the trials by clicking on them. So to summarize, the condition summary report type displayed the average and standard deviation of each trial that had been selected to create that report. On the other hand, the comparison mode allows you to group the data into different conditions with which you can compare them. So in this example over here, I have set my conditions as John and Louis, and we can see that on the graph. John and Louis. I've only got 2 conditions in this example, but I could just as easily have more. So for example, I could have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it would be presented in the same way. Now, to edit these conditions, all I need to do is press the edit condition over here. And I'm going to say that the first trial for each subject is going to be pre, and then the second one is going to be post. Now, when I hit save, it will take a second to generate, but instead of being grouped as John and Louis, it will be grouped as pre and post. And again, we can see that represented on the graph in the legend. Now that we've looked at the individual graphs, it's time to look at the 3D and video data. And I can tell that I have 3D and video data in the trials by the icons that are next to the trial names. To look at this data, all I need to do is click on the trial name, and this will generate the 3D perspective and the video data down below. So I'm going to pause this and I'm going to expand the 3D plot, the 3D perspective, I'm sorry. Now, just like Nexus, I can control the screen. I can rotate and I can zoom in, and I could even pan if I wanted to. So down below, we have the time bar, and we have a couple of icons on the time bar. So the first one is this black line, and that is the point in time. And as I scrub through the trial, I can see how it's moving along the time bar. The red and blue solid lines represent the foot strikes the orange and blue solid lines represent the left and right legs foot strikes respectively, while the orange and blue transparent bars represent the foot offs. So I can play this trial by hitting the space bar, or I can hit the play and pause button down below. But there are other amazing features that we can look at, and to see what they are, we can hover our mouse over the I button. I'm not going to go into too many of them right now, but one very useful feature is the ability to look at a certain amount of time in there. There is a lot of space over here where I had cropped the trial in Nexus, and so I don't really want to play all of that. So what I can do is limit it to the time that I'm interested in. So to do that, I'm going to hover my mouse over the time bar, and I'm going to press the time bar till my cursor changes. Then I'm going to click and drag, and we can see this purple region is the region of interest that I want to look at. Now, when I hit play, we can see that the subject is walking only over that particular region that I have selected. Another point in the 3D perspective is the focus of what my camera is looking at. Currently, we can see that the subject is staying still in our perspective, but the background is moving. This is a great view, and it really helps me look at what is going on with the subject. But I can also do the opposite by pressing this button on the top left corner, where now the subject is moving and the background is stationary. These time bar events and these time bar manipulations that I've shown you don't just only affect the 3D view, it will also affect the video and the graph view as well. So I'm going to pause it, and now I'm going to minimize the screen, and we're going to talk about the video. But before I do, those same controls that were in the maximized view are also in the thumbnail view. So just like the graphs and the video, the graphs and the 3D view, I can also expand the videos. In this particular trial, I only had 2 videos. If I had more, they would be also displayed down in this column below. So to maximize it, I'm again going to press the maximize button. And what we can see over here is that we've only got 1 video. To play the next one or to shift to the other perspective, I can just press this button up the top over here. And it's going to show me the other view. And this is my amazing coworker, John. As a side note, I just really want to thank John and Louis for helping me with this presentation and everyone else on the team. So what we have done is we've discussed the graphs, the 3D and the video views individually. But now we want to compare these different panels to each other. And this is where split screen view comes into play. And I can compare up to 4 different panels in a 2x2 configuration at a given time. These panels can be graphs, 3D, video, or a combination of the above. And to select the panels for the split screen view, we hover our mouse over the top of the panel, and we can see a left split screen view, a right split screen button, and the enable split screen view mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two to go on the top, and I'm going to select the video, the 3D and the video to go on the bottom. Now that I've made my selections, I'm going to enter the split screen view. And over here, now we can see that not only do we have the graphs on the top like I selected, we can also see the time normalized data below and everything is time synchronized. But maybe I don't want to look at knee adduction. Maybe I want to look at ankle flexion. It is ridiculously easy for me to change that. All I do is I go to the drop down here and I will choose the ankle dorsiflexion in my list and it changes automatically. Now that I'm happy with my layout, I want to save it so I can come back to it. And this is really easy to do. All you do is hit Save Layout. And now I'm going to call this knee and ankle angles. I'm going to hit Save. And it's great success. Going to minimize the screen now to go back to the original view. And up the top left, I originally had my powers layout. I want to look at my knee and ankle angles again. I simply click on the layout button and it has been loaded. So the next thing that I want to discuss is how easy it is to export the report to a Word document. To do that, what we do is we press the export button and we have the option of Word and Moveshelf. I will get onto Moveshelf in a second. We just have to hit export and it will generate a save prompt. And all we need to do is select where the file is going to be saved. To save time, what I have done is I have already I've already exported this template into a Word document, and we can see that over here. This data is exactly the same data that I have got in my report. So we can see the spatiotemporal parameters. We can see the kinematics, the moments, the powers, and the forces. And these titles can be changed and the spatiotemporal parameters can be changed as well. Now, one thing that I want to highlight over here is that we've got John and Louis over here. And so this means that I had exported my report based on the comparison report. If I were to have exported it based on the condition summary, it would have all of the information in the trial, but because I had set it to comparison, it's only exporting the pre and post or the John and Louis comparison that I had changed. So that is something that is awesome about Nexus Insight. We can export what we want to export in a way that we want to export it. As Kim had mentioned earlier, we also have the ability to export this report to an online Moveshelf platform. But this is an additional expense, which will require a separate Moveshelf license. And once again, please contact Moveshelf directly for information about that integration. Earlier in this demonstration, I had shown you the mean and standard deviation of the reference data. This was the same grade data that is on the graph that is highlighted over here. This reference data was generated by me from more walking trials that I had collected and processed on some of my other amazing coworkers. While we at Vicon do not provide you with time normalized reference data, we can and will provide guidance on how you can create your own reference data so that you can load it and compare it in Nexus Insight for your own reports. This reference data needs to be stored in an Excel file where each variable has its own sheet with its own specific naming convention. And this convention is split into three components. Number one, you have got the output. So in this case here, we've got rotation. Other outputs could be moments, powers, or forces. The second component is the joint. And in this case here, I'm looking at the pelvis, or I could look at the hip or the knee or the ankle, anything like that. And then finally is the direction of motion. And here we've got flexion, abduction, and rotation. So in this example here, I have got my sheets prepared for all of the outputs that I want to look at in my Nexus Insight template. Now that I've explained how the actual skeleton of the Excel file is created, I'm going to explain how each sheet needs to be constructed. And this is with three columns. The first one is the percentage of the gate cycle. And so we've got 0 to 101. The second column is the mean data that has been time normalized. And then the final column, the third, is the standard deviation. While I haven't shown it over here, this reference data, while I haven't shown it over here, we can also generate reference data for the spatiotemporal parameters. And once we have created this Excel spreadsheet, we need to have it saved in the following folder. C drive uses public documents, Vicon, Nexus Insight, references. And we can see here that I've got the gate template, which is the one that I had created. If I had more of these Excel files in the correct format, they could be loaded from this reference data gate template over here. So I have shown you what a report looks like, but I haven't shown you how we get started. And there are two ways to launch Insight. Number one, through Windows. And number two, through Nexus. So I'm going to load Nexus and I'm going to open my data management. And here I am in a session folder and I can see that I've got my Nexus Insight tool over here that will allow me to launch it. But I don't want to be limited to creating a report from one subject alone. So what I can do is I can go up to the subject level or even the study level. And here I've got my Nexus Insight logo over here. Now, when I launch Nexus Insight over here again, what it will do is it will take me out of the report and it will take me back to the home screen. So in the previous report that I had already shown you, I was only comparing to amazing coworkers, John and Louis. But I've also got a third coworker over here, my manager, Mike, and I want to add his data to a new report. So what I can do over here is I can change this directory to anything that I want to. So over here, I'm in my root study level, but I could change it if I would like to, and that's going to change these folders over here. I'm going to expand these in the hierarchy, and I'm going to select a couple of trials for John, a couple of trials from Louis, and I'm going to add some data from Mike as well. When I hit create report, I have the ability to change my report name. And I can also change the location where the report is saved. So I'm going to hit change over here. And yes, I'm happy to have it in this root folder. Now, this is where the report templates come into play. And as Kim has already mentioned, we provide you with three templates: the gate template, the cutting template, and the hitting template. Now, the gate and cutting really focus on lower body metrics, while the hitting will focus on upper body. But just because we have provided you with three templates, you're not limited to that. So what I've already done is I have created a lower body sagittal template. I'm going to create it. Now, while it's going on there, I'm going to show you this is a screenshot that I have taken where I'm comparing the original gate template that I've shown you previously and the lower body sagittal template that I have created in the past. So this is a comparison. So I'm going to go into this in more detail in a minute, but number one, I want to highlight the fact that I've got different templates selected in these two screenshots. And this lower body template is the one that I'm going to show you in a minute. And I've made some changes to it. So number one, I have removed some things. So for example, in this one over here, if I had minimized the powers, I've got forces in the original template. And over here, I do not have the forces on this one. Number two, I have changed some of the scales, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And number three, I've also changed some of the names. So instead of calling it hip, knee, and ankle, I have converted those to Spanish, where I've got cadera, rodilla, and tibia. I'm really sorry for mispronouncing that in Spanish. Okay. Now that I've shown you what the report will look like based on the new template, I'm going to explain what actually goes into creating or editing the template. Let me rephrase that, editing the template. So the templates are stored in the folder. C drive uses public documents Vicon Nexus Insight templates. And here we can see the templates that I've already created. We've got the cutting, the gate, and the hitting templates. And the file extension is .json. So these are the JSON files that I've already loaded. And JSON files are very similar to XML files in that it's a very useful way that we can store information that we want to access. So the JSON file over here, we can see that we have these curly braces up the top that we've got an open and closed curly braces. And within that, we have key value pairs worth of data. So up the top over here, we have the metadata where we've got the ID and the gate template. Now, further below, we've got the information that actually goes into the body of the template. So for example, here we've got the kinematics. These would be the angles. We've also got the moment charts, the powers charts, the forces, and the EMG. So to expand the kinematics again, over here, I've got more information where this is the joint. And here I've got the X, the Y, and the Z columns worth of data that we're looking at in the other one. So what I have done in the one that I have edited is I have changed the ID and the label. So I've changed the name of it. Number two, for the purposes of this demonstration, I have removed everything except for the ankle, the knee, and the hip joints. And instead of looking at the flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, and internal and external rotation, for the purpose of this demonstration, I am only looking at the flexion extension axes. Furthermore, I have changed the titles from English to Spanish, and I have also changed the scaling of the original template. So hopefully now it has already been generated, and we can see here compared to the original gate template, I don't have the forces down below. And when I expand the kinematics, for example, I don't have the abduction or internal external rotation graphs. I've created a template that I want to look at. So the other things that we can see over here is that the scaling is different compared to what I had shown you previously with the gate template. And I've also changed the names over here. In this example, I have removed features, but I can also just as easily add panels to this template if I would like to by making the change to the JSON files. So this is something that I want to illustrate how easy it is to create a template that suits your own needs as well. So we've covered a lot in this demo, and the question is, what resources will be available to me to help me get started with Nexus Insight? In addition to this webinar, we have already got our information on our docs.vicon.com page, where we have a very handy user guide and a PDF as well. And in the future, the support team will be making Nexus Insight videos to help you out as well. So, in conclusion, I want to remind you of the 5 points from the beginning of this demo. Number one, how easy it is to select the data that you want to display in your reports. And this isn't limited to one subject or one session folder. You can compare what you want to compare. Number two, this data is presented in an easy to understand format where my graphs, 3D, and trajectory data is time synchronized. Number three, I can easily create layouts to focus on the variables that matter to me. Number four, I can load and compare my reference data in an extremely easy manner. And finally, I can export my data in a convenient Word document and Moveshelf integration. Thank you. I'll hand it back to Dr. Kim.
Nev, for a fantastic demo. So the features we've shown today were in collaboration with our early adopters. So firstly, we want to thank those involved, as it really did help shape where we are with Nexus Insight. And we also want to share some of their thoughts. And to finish off, we want to share with you the direction of our future releases for Nexus Insight. These are some of the features within the roadmap, which is broken down into 2 phases. With first phase expanding feature offerings, such as the ability to create notes and annotation before exporting, and phase 2 is expanding the customizability. So to summarize our webinar today, Nexus Insight is an easy, intuitive reporting solution. It offers ready-to-use templates, for example, gate, cutting, baseball, and also has the ability to create custom report templates. This has been a customer-driven product, not only for the features that have been shown today, but our future roadmap. We offer a local reporting solution, so for users that don't have access to internet, this will not be an issue because they're able to generate a report and export from a local solution. For users that would like an integration with Cloudbase for further collaboration, this is where the integration with our partnership with Moveshelf comes in. And we'd like to say thank you so much for listening today. And if you do have any questions, please add them into the chat and we'll open it up and answer the questions. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nev. So we've got questions rolling in. The first one is the raw data graphed or is it subsampled? For example, normalized to 100 data points per gate cycle. So with this question, we actually can do both. We can create with raw data, or we can actually do it by the gate events as shown in the demo earlier today by Nev. Display more than 3 columns of a chart. Currently, the layout is 3 by 3. However, that is something we are looking to expand on in our future releases. There's a question for you, Nev, talking about your custom report template. Could you just give a bit more detail in some of the items that you can change? The question was asking what items you can change and what variables within the C3D.
Sorry, I'm just trying to look for the actual question so I can read it for myself. Is that the last one?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can custom calculated parameters be included in reports or are these hard-coded? So this is a really good question. We have not shown you I showed you an example of a template, but we also have the no template. And with that one, we can actually look at every single thing in the C3D in and of itself. So, for example, in this particular case, I'm only showing you the lower body metrics, but what you could easily do is you could add more metrics that you would like. So if I start off on the gate template as my base template, I could easily add the upper body parameters as well. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I could also change the names of the graphs and the scale, etc., etc. So I hope I answered that question for you.
The question here, is Polygon no longer usable at Nexus 2.16? The answer is yes. So for people that are using Polygon, that is still possible within ProClipse, and the icon will be there. If you do have Nexus Insight, however, the icon in the top right-hand corner does get replaced with Nexus Insight, but you can still launch Polygon reports and report within Polygon as well. We are getting a lot of questions coming through. I'm just trying to go through, review them.
If you don't mind me, Kim, there is one that I would like to take.
Yeah, of course.
The video format for the report. It is MP4 with the H.264 codec. So you can collect your data in Nexus 2.16 and just transcode it with the MP4 H.264 codec.
Change playback speeds of the video and step through the video. So you can actually step through the video, and that's something probably hard to see in the video, but you can use either the time bar and drag it across, or you can also use your key. So I'm sure you're very interested in, for instance, foot contact and understanding where force plate contact is. So you can actually use your keys to do that. Changing speed right now is not controllable, and it is something that's going to be coming in the near future.
Yes, the question is, can we also add EMG to the report at Nexus Insight? And yes, you can. Number one, in the no report template, it will pull the EMG data from the C3D itself. For the templates, I did not have any EMG data for John and Louis' data, but the template actually does come with EMG, hamstrings and quadriceps, I believe. So you can edit the template that way to display your EMG data that way.
Next question is, the colored SD bands, can they be switched off? So as Nev showed, in the top corner, there is ways to take those on and off, so you can hide them from display as needed. Swan, I'm just getting across. They're coming in as quicker as I can actually read these. How do you get spatial temporal parameters into Nexus?
That way, there are several ways that you can do it. Number one, you have the ability to generate those spatiotemporal parameters in a Nexus pipeline in and of itself. Number one. Number two, you could use MATLAB, Python, or ProCalc to generate those gate cycle parameters yourself and store them in the analysis parameters. So we have several ways that you can do it. The important thing is that it's in the C3D, and we can definitely help you understand the methods to get those analysis parameters.
There's a question, is it possible to show the individual gate cycles in the graphs, not the mean, without the SD, together with control data? So there is a way to do that right now. That would require a single gate event. We are expanding this offering in the future releases where you're able to select between gate cycles and display them. So that is something that will be coming very soon. Next question on custom calculated parameters. So the way Nexus Insight reads the report, it's based on the C3D file. As long as the data is stored within the C3D file under, for example, model outputs, you'd be able to then display that information in a gate report, or if it's spatial temporal parameters, for example, they will be listed in your analysis portion under a table. We have a question here about licensing, of how how to license Nexus Insight, we do have a YouTube channel which covers how to license and within our Nexus documentation. Nev, there was one to do with JSON files. Do you want to answer that one?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely agree that the JSON files, editing it is not it's not a trivial matter. So we are definitely looking at ways that we can make it more efficient, and work is being done to make it more efficient for you guys as the end user.